Reporter attacks Caroline live on air, and Trump intervenes with the most humiliating response of the press conference. The cold lights of Phoenix's Civic Center glinted off camera lenses like watchful eyes, hungry for an unscripted statement. The main hall, vast and austere, pulsed with restrained anticipation. Journalists, aides and onlookers filled the seats with disciplined silence. At the center, standing before a row of microphones, 29-year-old Caroline Leavitt wasn't just concluding her press conference. She was commanding it. With a firm tone and an almost unsettling calm, she answered questions with surgical precision. Her gestures were measured, but her presence was impossible to ignore. There was no hesitation, no effort to sound convincing. She simply was. To those seeing her for the first time, it seemed unlikely someone so young could hold such a strategic position in the fiery arena of politics. And yet, there she stood, controlling the narrative like someone who already knew every trap hidden beneath the red carpet of American politics. The camera flashes were constant, but they didn't blind her. She kept her gaze steady as if she knew exactly where she was headed, and why. The atmosphere was professional, almost predictable. But there was something in the air. A premonition that this day, this press conference, wouldn't end like any other. And indeed it wouldn't. There was still one question left. And it would change everything. The question came like a calculated shot, disguised as journalistic curiosity. Lucas Brennan, a political columnist known for his sharp, insinuating tone, raised his voice from the back of the room without waiting to be called. "Ms. Leavitt," he began with a half-smile, "at 29, do you truly believe you have the maturity to handle decisions affecting millions? Or are you here more for the symbol you represent than the experience you, let's be honest, haven't had time to accumulate?" A low murmur rippled through the room. The kind that precedes electric tension. The kind you don't just hear, you feel it in your spine. Caroline froze for a moment. It wasn't the question itself that surprised her. She'd faced similar ones before from others on other stages. But there was something in Brennan's tone, in the way he'd turned the room's attention to her age, that carried more than skepticism. It carried disdain. The moment, until then perfectly choreographed, faltered. The silence that followed was razor-sharp. The audience's breath seemed to hitch in their collective chest. Cameras adjusted, microphones leaned in as if the entire world was waiting for a stumble, a misstep, an emotional reaction. The earlier composure gave way to growing unease. The professional setting was slowly becoming an arena. Brennan, hands in his pockets and chin slightly raised, looked pleased with the effect of his words. Caroline remained silent. Still unblinking, still not responding, but feeling, with absolute clarity, the weight of that pause. It was there, between the provocation and the unanswered reply, that something shifted. The script had left the stage, and the real story had begun. Time seemed to stretch. A second became an eternity as Caroline, still standing, locked eyes with Lucas Brennan. The hall, once filled with constant motion, keyboard clicks, murmurs between reporters, plunged into absolute silence. No answer came. No words. Caroline's gaze, fixed on the reporter, wavered between self-control and the spark of indignation threatening to surface. It was as if she were processing not just the question, but everything it carried. The doubting stares, the veiled smiles, the judgments piled onto her meteoric career. She'd been called inexperienced before. Reckless. A decorative piece. But never so publicly, never with such subtle humiliation. She knew any impulsive response could be used against her. And precisely because of that, she hesitated. The flashes continued, relentless. Every click felt like a demand. Say something. React. But Caroline wasn't made of impulse. Yet in that moment she felt vulnerability seeping through the cracks in her armor. She was young. And now she was being cornered for it. The audience, until then mere spectators, began shifting in their seats. Reporters exchanged glances. Someone coughed in the back, briefly puncturing the tension. Even that small sound echoed like an explosion in the void that had swallowed the room. Brennan's face remained unreadable, satisfied. His eyes said what his mouth didn't. "Let's see what you're made of." Caroline took a deep breath. But she didn't speak. Not yet. Because something stronger was about to happen. A subtle movement, almost imperceptible, came from the side of the stage. A man stepped forward, crossing the line between observer and protagonist. He wore no badge, carried no briefcase. But no one would dare stop him from speaking. It was Donald Trump. And he didn't seem willing to wait for permission. Trump approached the podium with the ease of a man who'd never needed an introduction. The sound of his footsteps echoed on the marble floor, shattering the silence like a contained thunderclap. Caroline turned slightly, surprised, not by the gesture but by its surgical timing. He'd been there the whole time. Watching. Waiting. You know, Lucas, he began, his voice laced with that trademark sarcasm, half lethal. That's a fascinating question. Really fascinating. I just have to wonder, would you be asking that if she were 59 with gray hair and a tie? Nervous laughter flickered through the room, followed by a heavier silence. Trump kept his eyes fixed on the reporter, smiling like he'd already won before finishing his sentence. Because I know people 3 times her age who can't even manage their own schedules, let alone a cabinet. And they've been making decisions, bad decisions mind you, for decades. You know a few of those, don't you? Lucas Brennan shifted in his seat, struggling to maintain composure. Trump pressed on. Caroline isn't here as a symbol. She's here because, unlike most, she knows what she's talking about. She didn't inherit a seat. Didn't get here on political favors. She got here by facing the old guard, the same ones who love preaching about experience while the country sinks. His tone grew sharper now. The humor gave way to something more cutting. The problem isn't her youth, Lucas. The problem is she doesn't play your game. And that scares you. Trump then turned to Caroline, who stood motionless, absorbing every word. Leadership doesn't have an age. It takes courage. And that, my dear, you've got in spades. A dramatic pause. Trump scanned the room again. And if the system's uncomfortable, it's because someone's finally doing the right thing. The room erupted in murmurs and restrained applause. The press conference had a new center, and a new direction. The impact was immediate. The once reserved audience began reacting. A journalist in the front row nodded subtly. A political aide across the room crossed her arms, thoughtful. This wasn't just spontaneous support, it was a narrative shift in real time. Caroline, silent until now, felt the weight lift, not from her shoulders but onto Brennan's. The reporter averted his gaze, scrambling to recover. His once confident face now showed clear discomfort. He'd delivered his question like a masterstroke but hadn't expected such precision in return, especially not in front of everyone. Trump took a step back, satisfied like a man placing the last domino and watching the chain reaction. Caroline lifted her chin slightly. She hadn't spoken a word since the provocation, and paradoxically, that silence had made her stronger. The room's energy shifted. What had been doubt about her competence turned into quiet admiration. The young woman few took seriously had resisted without shouting, without counterattacking, and in doing so, proved she had nothing to prove. Lucas Brennan meanwhile tucked away his notepad. There were no more questions in his voice. His smugness had been replaced by contained unease. The press conference, once routine, had become a defining moment. Caroline was no longer the rookie under scrutiny. She was the woman who'd withstood the attack, held her ground, and had an unlikely, devastating ally in her corner. As the room still buzzed with the confrontation's aftermath, Caroline stepped forward. She glanced at Trump and gave a subtle nod of thanks. Her expression wasn't triumphant, just firm. There was no need to gloat. Her presence was answer enough. "Thank you everyone," she finally said, her voice clear and steady. "That's all for today." Her words were brief but loaded. No fanfare, no vanity. Just confirmation that she was back in control, perhaps more than ever. Trump crossed his arms, watching approvingly. Before leaving the stage, he turned one last time to the crowd. "History isn't made by those who repeat what's already been done," he said. "It's made by those with the courage to be different, even if it makes people uncomfortable." With that, he exited as he'd entered, dominant, unpredictable. The press conference ended in a mix of respectful silence and animated whispers. But what solidified there was more than a well-delivered response. It was a redefinition. Caroline hadn't just survived the provocation. She'd emerged as a symbol of something new. Something no one could ignore anymore. So, did you like that plot twist worthy of a political thriller? If you thought this press conference would be just another dull affair, well, now you know that in Caroline Leavitt's world, no question is harmless, and no answer is predictable. If moments like this make you think, give you chills, or just make you eager for the next round, then don't miss out. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a like. Because here, every story comes with a plot twist even Hollywood didn't see coming. And comment below, what would you have said in Caroline's place? See you in the next episode, because real politics, with drama, tension, and guts, happens here. Until then, watch out for questions disguised as compliments.